All right, guys. Thanks for joining the Grape AMA, the weekly AMA. Whether you're listening live or on the recording, thanks for your questions. I'm going to go through the standard AMA questions first. If you have any other questions from now on, obviously use the live chat. So probably just get stuck into it. So first question from Need Grape. Hey, Lively Baker. I'm getting all these. I mean, I guess it's a bit of a meme now. I'm getting all these LB.
Lord Bacon.
Yeah, these like random names. Lively Baker. I mean, I don't bake, but I do like eating baked goods. But okay, he's asking if X-Grape liquidity increases sufficiently, would it be moved from an isolated pool to the main market one day, or is it always going to be too vulnerable to attacks? Yeah, really, it is. For it to be able to be low risk enough, it would have to be kind of matching the other assets on that in the main pool. Obviously, it works like anything else. Really, the asset with the weakest asset is the weak link in the protocol there. So if we add Xgrape into it, then the security of the entire main protocol is completely reliant on Xgrape. So that's why we want to keep very very liquid assets, very large assets, and assets with Chainlink price feeds on the main feed. So that's probably not going to be Xgrape. It would have to get to like the size of AVAX essentially, or SAVAX really, which is like AVAX anyway. So we're looking at Chainlink Oracle is necessary, and millions of dollars of liquidity, and liquidity on multiple different places, including centralized exchanges as well. So I mean that's obviously there's not many assets that are on the main page anyway. And I mean that's kind of a good reason. Like lending protocols, security is really high priority, especially decentralized lending protocols. People and there's another question later on about the RV, this Mango hacker guy. And that's kind of why you have to be really cautious with lending, because people like that are looking for highly profitable trading strategies, and a lot of the time a lending protocol is kind of like the perfect avenue for it. So I mean, to answer the question, likely not. It would have to increase quite a bit. Like we'd have to have very widespread adoption for it to get there, which is possible, but not anytime very soon. Disco Chuck is asking, hey, Linux Biscuit, very interesting name. Are there still plans on switching rewards for LP in the Enoteca from vintage to raisins? Yes. I was just looking over this today, and I don't even need to make a new contract, which is really nice. But because there's already rewards accumulating on the for vintage, there will need to be a bit of a transition. So early in the week, this coming week, I'm going to make an announcement saying, essentially, please claim your rewards. Rewards for vintage will end at this time. Please claim them, and then maybe a day or two after that, the rewards will change to raisin. And you won't need to unstake, which is really nice. You'll just need to claim the vintage rewards. Needwen is asking, hey guys, in the spirit of keeping Vinium and Grape separate, I suggest that a Vinium YouTube channels are created. Oh yeah, I mean that's more of a suggestion, but that's a good one. I think we just use the Grape one for the time being, but we will create its own one for Vinium, where we'll upload other videos and whatnot, things like the AMAs and other special events or whatever, and other tutorials that will come up and whatnot. Need Grape is asking, hey, lovable bear. Again, another very interesting one. Any update on when the Corker Mint auction will commence? Potential Christmas present idea. I mean, it'd be a pretty funny Christmas present. I think this will do very soon. I know I've said that, but there are a couple other things that needed to be done first, and they've kind of cleared. So this will come before Christmas. So yeah, potential Christmas present idea, I guess. Corker NFTs. They do give a high yield, so there's a bonus there. Need Grape again is asking, a leveraged borrower. Yeah, I mean that's what I do. I have a question about how leveraged borrowing works. I thought, well, who better ask? Maybe the Mango guy. He knows how to use it to his advantage. I know some platforms allow you to perform, say, 30x leverage, long shorts. Vinium is also doing some leverage strategies. Made me wonder how 30x is achieved. I assume the strategy is automatically borrow against your collateral, redeposit, borrow again. What wizardry? Synthetics, flash loans, yep. Can be utilized to increase your exposure to assets by an actual factor of dozens or even hundreds of times leverage. How will Vinium do it? Well, I mean, essentially, to achieve leverage, you're borrowing using some sort of collateral. And, there's different ways it can be done in the back end. Like you mentioned here, synthetic token that just tracks your balance essentially and what you owe, and then, essentially like a liquidation. And, then flash loans is also used, even just the standard, borrow, come back again, borrow, come back again. Essentially what a flash loan would do is just kind of like speed that up. And essentially what all this does is really just kind of like speed it up. In reality, like, you get to a, leverage exchange, you're essentially borrowing money to leverage using your collateral is what you're doing. And so it's essentially the same thing, really. And it's kind of almost irrelevant how they do it, as long as, because the goal is the same, which is really have more exposure to the same asset, or even another asset, really, than your collateral. And that's really just achieved through, looping around, really, in the old sense of the term. But how you achieve that is, through, like you mentioned, synthetics, where you just track the numbers, or you can use flash loans, where you actually say, flash loan the total amount, the total leveraged amount, deposit that, and then borrow, the maximum amount that you can, I guess, or whatever factor that you have on, and then pay back the flash loan. So essentially, you have achieved that amount of leverage. And that's essentially what Grape will do. That's essentially what we'll do with Vinium when, to make it nice and smooth. Flash loans are a perfect way to do it, where, say I want 5 times leverage, which is, I think it's 80% LTV is 5 times leverage. And so essentially, I have $1,000 collateral. I want 5 times leverage, or, we have 80% LTV on this token. And so I will flash loan $5,000, and then deposit that as collateral, borrow 80%, and then pay back the flash loan. And I still have my collateral as well. Don't forget. So that's essentially the difference that's paid back. That pays back the flash loan. And so essentially, it's the same thing as just looping around multiple times, but without having to actually do that, which is really nice. And so it works the same on margin exchanges, really, because you'll notice that when it gets higher, say I want to borrow 99% LTV. I don't have the exact calculation of what that would be, but it's quite a substantial amount. 90% LTV is roughly 10 times leverage. 95, I'm pretty sure, is 20 times. But you go to 80 times LTV, and that's 5 times leverage. So it gets exponentially larger. How much leverage you can achieve, through the amount of LTV that you can borrow using your collateral. So I mean, that's really just how it works. It's a pretty cool concept. Leverage is a very important concept for a lot of things, really. Peter Flea, can you give us an idea of how long to 350% on presses? It's hard to say, because obviously you have the 90% initial amount, which is determined directly by the drip rate, the rate that the daily percentage drips back to you, and that can be increased in the soda press and the Solera by compounding. And then from there, the rest of your APR is obviously based on other people's actions. So deposits, claims, they all boost your share price. So really, APR is post you ROIing is going to be essentially determined by activity on the contracts. So it's hard to say exactly how long that would take. Probably not 1 month is a reasonable, I mean, maybe it would take a year. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. You can look at the wine press. You can look at the calculate price. Well, actually, you can look at all the press contracts, and there's a calculate price read function, which would actually be good to add to the UI. But because that's basically the price of the share at the moment, and that should always go up because the share price of all the presses always goes up, essentially. So the price of the wine press LP is 2.5. So that's it started off at 1. So that's 250% there. In the wine press, and the wine press is probably the least popular press. It has been around the longest though, so maybe you can use that as a gauge. I think it's been almost 120 days since that started for 250%. Activities kind of picks up really quickly with the presses in the beginning, obviously, and then kind of maybe drops as it's as the initial hype dies down, and then you have maybe spikes here and there with all the presses, really. But still 250% really on the wine press. So maybe that's a good kind of example, good idea of I guess how long it would take for 350% plus. Um, Need Grape is asking, hey, Lawless Badlands. This other interesting one, very creative. This isn't really a question, but I'd love to hear your take on the Mango Hacker. Yeah, walking away from Aave with bad debt. How we can learn from that. Yeah, so this is, I mentioned earlier that that's kind of these people really are definitely out in the crypto space because you can make a lot of money very quick if you know where to look, and a lot of the time it's not illegal because essentially just it's kind of a gray area sometimes if you manipulate prices and whatnot, and you kind of especially if you do any sort of deceiving things like phishing or whatnot. But a lot of sometimes as well, it's not even legal because or illegal, I should say, because really they're not doing anything other than kind of doing what the code says basically. And there's a kind of a thing from um, the DAO hack of Ethereum back in 2016, where it was kind of the idea of code on the blockchain, Ethereum. The whole idea of it initially back then was code is law. In other words, that you don't need a middleman, you don't need a third party, because the code is the law. It whatever says in the code, that's what happens. And I don't know, the DAO hacker's probably a memer, and he's memeing that, but it worked. It worked there. Like he didn't kind of do any sort of phishing attacks or sort of like approval attacks or any sort of thing like that. He kind of just exploited the code by running the code in a way that it's allowed to be run, but with unintended consequences that the developers didn't foresee. So I mean that's kind of the same thing as like the Mango issue, and also with Curve recently on Aave, where he's exploiting how the system works for his benefit. And so these people will always exist in the crypto space because it's permissionless as well. And as I said, there's a lot of money to be made doing that. So what we can learn really from it is kind of what Aave's also done now as well, which is basically like shut off all the assets that they had that weren't sufficient liquidity, big assets. If you think Curve, the CRV token, it's a pretty big asset. Like it's on multiple exchanges. It's got millions of dollars of liquidity. It's got a Chainlink Oracle. And still, because he was just able to essentially use the system to essentially loop CRV multiple times to create a very, very large position. I think it was over $100 million worth. When that comes for comes time to liquidate, you run into the issue of, well, this token has, say, $30 million of liquidity and maybe a couple more mil on exchanges and whatnot, but there's $100 million position that I need to liquidate. Well, it's not going to work well. Like, it's actually not going to be possible, obviously, and that's how you end up with bad debt. So, I mean, that's something that, it comes back to what I was saying before about Xgrape being added to the pool. Well, this is kind of the issue that you have. I know everybody wants to use every coin that they have to, as collateral to borrow against. It's, it's a really cool thing, and we can do that in isolated ways, which is what we are doing to limit risk. But there are serious risks to adding it to main pools with all the other assets, because, as I said, all those assets are subject to the weakest link, which is whatever asset has the least liquidity, is most volatile. Maybe the oracle isn't the strongest. So essentially, we need to be very cautious about what we add to the main pool, and as well what assets we add to isolated pools as well. I mean, we'd rather not give anyone the opportunity to cause bad debt or even siphon those funds out through some sort of loophole, just because of an asset with low liquidity and whatnot. So there's a couple of things that we're doing for this, and obviously the main one is separating low liquidity assets from high liquidity assets. There's other things as well, like borrow caps that we can add on, and other things as well, which will likely do that Euler has done very well on Ethereum, which is create or segregate assets into different categories based on essentially those categories, which is essentially those criteria, which is Oracle effectiveness, Oracle essentially Oracle sturdiness, and volatility and liquidity. And based on that, we can have different parameters on essentially how much you can borrow using that token, if you can even borrow using that token at all. So essentially, we already have that with the LTV. Low liquidity assets will obviously be lower LTV, more volatile assets, lower LTV. You can see right now we have stablecoins quite high LTV. And then, volatile assets, lower LTV. And we'll follow that the same through the isolated pools as well. And then, we have other things that we can add, like borrow caps. We can segregate assets even further. Essentially, they can kind of even be in their own pools, kind of like Silo does, which is a neat way to minimize risk. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things that we can do, and we kind of are, doing them, but it's something that we really need to keep on top of all the time, really, because the space moves so fast, and there's so many things that happen all the time that you really need to be on top of it. And so that's kind of that's one of the things that I do a lot, is staying in tune with the current crypto or mainly DeFi market. That includes all the major protocols and all the news from around that, and a lot of upcoming protocols and things like that, and essentially learning as much as possible from other people's protocols, so that we can make our protocol the best of all that, which is really the idea. So yeah, Dirk. Dirk is asking, "G'day, LeBank." Nice. That is nice and simple. Any chance for a bit more information about ZK Sync assets and how it relates to Vinium? I think he's got a DBank vote post here. I think I'm not entirely sure what this is. I think ZK Sync has two separate chains, I should say. They have ZK Sync version 1, which is it's a layer 2 on Ethereum, but it's not EVM compatible, and that's actually live now on mainnet. There's a couple apps on there, and I guess that is for this. I guess that's to support these assets. because ZK Sync version 2, which is the EVM compatible layer 2, is in like a closed mainnet right now. I think that launches. I mean, I don't think they've even announced the date yet when that launches to the public. They haven't launched it publicly to developers yet, which is the next step. So I'm not sure exactly when they'll come around. But yeah, ZK Sync's already live in version 1. You should probably go test it out actually, because there's probably going to be an airdrop, and you know with all these airdrops, they probably, some criteria is obviously going to be like, use our bridge to our thing, use our some apps on the chain or whatever, and then have some fun basically, and then get an airdrop. It's all I'm just guessing here, but it's usually the case. Like with Optimism, that was the case, and pretty much all airdrops have that. And,
I
same
mean,
as Arbitrum.
Historically, there've been some pretty good airdrops, like I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. It's free money, and depending on how big the protocol is, they can be really good. I remember the Uniswap airdrop was very good. Paraswap was pretty good as well. ENS domains was pretty good. 1 inch. So yeah, and Arbitrum airdrop should be, I don't know, at some point. They've been teasing it for, I don't think they've been teasing it, other people have been teasing it for ages, but it's worth like bridging to Arbitrum and kind of using some apps. It's a good chain anyway, Arbitrum, if you haven't used it already. All right, so that's the end of the main questions. I'll probably just go to the live chat now. Chenkle. All I care is when X-Ray pull and LPs and Vinium. Yeah, so we're going to do, obviously the X-Ray LP will be in its isolated pool, and then I mentioned as well we'll have other LPs and yield-bearing assets that have that you can use as collateral to borrow against and essentially leverage. So that, and a couple of those will be, Curve, Try Crypto, GLP. They'll be all these will be auto compounding as well in the background, and you can leverage them up, 3 to 5 times likely, and probably some stablecoin LPs as well. I know the Trader liquidity book is now live. You should give that a go if you haven't already, to kind of trade between stablecoins and between assets that are essentially pegged to each other, like AVAX, SAVAX, or Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin, BTCB, because it will give really good pricing, basically, with very low slippage. And we can use those for collateral as well, because they actually generate really good fees. But the problem with that is that you also have to rebalance it. So that's another thing that we're kind of also working on building, actually, is a kind of a rebalancing ability that will rebalance your positions in the background, really, in the background essentially, so that you can you can do things like not be liquidated, or have liquidation protection loans or positions through things like rebalancing in the background, where you have keepers kind of add or subtract collateral to keep your loan healthy. And that's the same thing as the liquidity books. We can do that there as well. We can have your position kind of maintained in the optimum in the optimal range for fee generation. So that's something also we're working on in the background, which will help be tied in very nicely with Vinium. But in terms of when, definitely this month we're going to roll out a few of them. We're going to roll out a few initial LPs, Xscrape as well, and then we're going to add other things, other helper contracts on as well, like flash loan leverage, deleverage, and the thing I was just talking about, which is rebalancing. That's more of a work in progress, but we'll go step by step and build on top of all of it together. So Endless Rainbows is asking, if I supply 100 USD, then borrow $60 AVAX, how much would it be paying in interest a day? Basically nothing. Yeah, the interest on the site is yearly, obviously. So daily, you obviously divide that amount by 365 and you can get a daily amount, because it is APY on the site, it's not APR, but it's the same idea, roughly. So right now the borrow APY on AVAX is actually quite high. It's 5.6%. So you would, I guess, be paying that if you borrowed AVAX. If you borrowed SAVAX, you can get 109%. So there is a difference there, obviously, that you can get you can borrow SAVAX much cheaper and sell the SAVAX for AVAX, or even unstake it and get the AVAX if you really want AVAX instead. Saint is asking, seen a couple of ZK Sync airdrop marketed recently. Yeah, those Twitter posts, man, I've been getting so many damn Twitter posts of like, hey, here's my airdrop. Never click those things. They're all scams. You will pretty much never need to click someone's post to claim an airdrop. To claim an airdrop, they're either going to give you the money, like they're either going to just airdrop it to you, or it'll be on their official page. And it'll be an official thing. They'll probably be hyping it up for ages, so you'll know about it. And they'll also have, official links on their Discord, their Telegram, and all that sort of stuff. So, you need to be careful in this space. There's a lot of scammers, and, people do fall for those airdrop things, and, Vitalik's like, Vitalik adds you to his list of, his giveaway list or whatever. You have all those things on Twitter all the time, and damn, it's crazy how much of the internet is actually bots. It's actually crazy. Need Raisin, Galactic Grape. It's asking, the anniversary of Grape Finance coming up. What has been one of your worst experiences? And what has been one of the best? Yeah, nice. Yeah, I guess yeah, it's funny to actually think that it's almost been a year now as well. It's gone really fast, but it's also gone really slow, so to say. It's funny how that works, but man, this industry is so fast paced that it's hard to keep up, for sure. But it also makes things move really fast. Like makes time move really fast, but there's a lot of things going on that it also makes it kind of, it makes it feel like a long time, like a lot of things have happened, which a lot of things have happened, man, this year. It's crazy stuff. I don't think there's been a year in crypto that has actually been this crazy. And I've been in crypto a little while, and usually you have like one major event or something like that happens in a year or something like that. But this year was quite a few. But I guess worst experience is probably hmm. I mean, worst experience that I've had personally is definitely the whole LC thing. Absolute disaster. And I definitely don't want to repeat that again. One of the best experiences is probably hmm, it's hard to say. There's actually been quite a good amount of good experiences, to be honest. I wasn't. I started the thing in January. I didn't actually have that many expectations for it, which is always a good thing, to be honest. When you do anything, is kind of to not have outlandish expectations of things, because it's hard to live up to those expectations no matter what. So it's always that was kind of a nice. It turned out really well. In other words, I mean, probably one of the best experiences is back when we launched the original NFT collection, and we because here's the thing, like we started out in January, and we had a good run where we actually were above peg for about 100 days from launch, which is actually probably probably a record, at least on AVAX. But yeah, that was really good. And then we kind of died down, and went below peg and kind of fluctuated around. And whenever you go below peg, it's kind of a lot of people leave, obviously, especially during this time. There were quite a few other Toon Forks that were kind of doing well, and people kind of rotated around them. And then we launched the NFTs and the initial nodes, and we kind of revamped the protocol revamped entirely at that point, and grew to incredible highs that were multiples of where it was before. And so I think that was it was a great experience for at least for me to see, to put in that effort and see it grow very consistently to highs that I didn't think were even possible, to be honest. In over several months, it was really nice to see. And so, yeah, exactly. Because I think at the time, we, AVAX hasn't really been known for Toon Forks. There wasn't really any sort of big Toon Forks on AVAX. Like, you have big Toon Forks on Chronos, on Phantom, obviously, on BSC as well. But AVAX didn't really have a big Toon Fork. So I didn't actually think 10 million TVL was actually possible on AVAX. But we actually hit it. And we actually had several $1 million of liquidity. And more liquidity than MIM on AVAX, which I think we still even do, or we're actually one of the highest of MIM on AVAX. Which is really the original goal of Tombs anyway, is to increase the liquidity of the coin very cheaply, essentially for free, because you're printing the money for free. And so that's essentially what we did. So I mean, that was it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see how far we've come and how long we've lasted as well over this year, and probably one of the craziest years in crypto. And we're still here. Insane. But it means that there's we have good potential. We have good resilience, and a good future because of that. So it's cool. Endless rainbows. Do you think degen APRs will ever be sustainable without Ponzionomics? No. It's like a perpetual motion machine, you know what I mean? How can I get energy for free without doing nothing? It defies the laws of physics. It's not possible. How can I get 1% a day APR? Oh, how can I get 1% a day returns for the rest of my life without doing anything? It's impossible. So you have to put in value to get value. And if you're not putting in value, well, you supplement it with Ponzionomics, really. But I guarantee the next bull market anyway, there'll be plenty of new types of Ponzionomics, because crypto, the way you can make just tokens out of anything is a very powerful tool, that you can do a lot with. But you're seeing it now anyway that pretty much all the Ponzionomics protocols or Ponzionomics in general are kind of not favored in this market, obviously, because, well, there's not enough buying pressure to meet that inflation. And so now you have things like revenue-based protocols, which, if you look at the revenue in terms of APR, is nowhere near degen APR. Like, it's absolutely nowhere near degen APRs, but it's actually very sustainable. So you're trading off high yield for sustainability, in other words, and everything is a trade-off. So, but next bull market, plenty of new Ponzi's will pop up, I'm sure. Any comments on the FTX situation? Well, I mean, I guess the main comment is take your money off exchanges. Don't keep money on exchanges. Learn to self-custody and do that. I pretty much have $0 on exchanges, and I hardly use them because I don't trust them. This is not the first exchange that has collapsed, and it definitely will not be the last.
People seem to forget about Mount Gox all those years ago.
Yeah, well, it's too long ago, isn't it? I think it was like 8 years ago. And that was the biggest Bitcoin exchange by far in a very early Bitcoin market, which was very fragile as well. And that collapsed, and basically, all that Bitcoin evaporated. But Bitcoin's still here. So, in terms of how it's going to affect crypto as a whole, like, crypto will live on, obviously. There's no doubt about that. But it's a wake up call to people to not trust exchanges, and that goes for Binance as well. Like, I know Binance is heralded as the king of exchanges. They definitely are, but don't keep your money on the exchange. Like, if you want to do trading on the exchange, keep a trading balance on the exchange to trade with. But, like, don't have that be your entire net worth, which a trading balance shouldn't be your entire net worth anyway. If you're actually trading and you're actually serious about it, you should be diversified and not be trading with your entire balance, because you will lose all that money anyway in trading. But take your money off exchanges, self-custody, and therefore you at least know that you're fully responsible for your keys, and you don't have to rely on any exchange.
I mean, like, the whole premise of the crypto space is like decentralization. So it's like quite interesting how we have these like huge centralized exchanges that call for regulation, and they have no regulation within themselves. So it's like quite interesting.
It's a scam. Yeah, it is. There's a reason for centralized exchanges. Obviously, you need it for the KYC. No, I mean for the on ramp. I mean, because of KYC. In other words,
Problem as well comes as like how they store your data. Like, what about all the data that was stored through FTX?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, and someone has that and your KYC data as well. And they have your money as well. So yeah, it's definitely a tough situation, but it's definitely a wake up call to people that were kind of trusting some exchanges to be like, okay, this exchange is all right. They're sponsoring Super Bowls. They're donating 40 million to Democrats. They must be in good financial standing, right? Well, apparently not. So
I mean, an
definitely,
unfortunate circumstance might be, the call of regulation on DeFi and like decentralized protocols, when in sense not centralized protocols such as FTX.
yeah. I mean, they are regulated to an extent. FTX US is regulated. It's separate from their other exchange, like the global exchange. Usually that's how it goes, like Binance US and then Binance Global or whatever. But I guess what a proper regulation would be, like an actual good regulation would be, um, some sort of proof of reserves and some sort of checking and guaranteeing on rehypothecation of funds, especially customer funds of the exchange too. I don't know if that will happen, but that would be. It seems like there's been a community calling for that anyway, with a couple exchanges actually providing proof of reserves, um, which is a good step. Um, so which CFIs do you think will be around next bull market?
Binance's BTC holdings, I'd say they definitely will be.
Well, hopefully, because if they don't have that, then we're stuffed.
Don't they have like 600,000 Bitcoin all up or something?
It's a lot. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's several 100,000. Yeah. Yeah. CFIs. I think if we're talking about exchanges, I think Binance will be around. They're definitely a smart business, and we know exchanges make money, big money, and when you're making that sort of money, you don't need to like gamble. Like you don't need to take risks when your actual company just makes high profit, like Binance does, and pretty much most exchanges anyway. And then they have a very wide vertical as well. They have the chain, they have two chains actually, and then they have so they're benefiting from that too. They have other things that they do, like their earn feature. Obviously, they have perpetuals, and then they I mean they do a lot of things. So they have a wide vertical. Coinbase will probably be around. They're a big company. And again, another exchange makes a lot of money. I don't know who else actually. The apps that are like BlockFi and Celsius, in other words, are great ideas. I love that app. I love the idea of the app. You're getting yield on your tokens, essentially on your even on your US dollars. But if the yield is ridiculously high and the yield is not from token inflation, it's from it's like BlockFi giving 10% yield or something on USDC. How are they getting that yield? And how are they getting that yield when they say they're putting it in Aave, but you look at Aave and Aave is like 2%. So where's that 8% coming from? And if you see that, well, then they're taking risks, and they're taking probably unnecessary risks with your money. So CFIs like that, not gonna make it. They probably already not made it, to be honest. That's why DeFi is king, because you can do that stuff, and there's a lot of cool things coming up. Utilizing tokens like GLP, which already earn yield, and then putting that into something else that earns yield, or utilizing it in something else that earns yield, and then maybe even hedging the Bitcoin and ETH exposure in that to kind of neutralize price exposure and just capture yield instead. Even 10-20% on stablecoins is not unheard of in DeFi. So you don't really need to use those apps, really. They're more of a ease of use thing. But DeFi will get there, is kind of the ideas of what we want to do anyway, which is making it easier to use, because it is a little bit difficult to use. There's a very steep learning curve on it, which is kind of a problem. It leads people to not self-custody and to instead use centralized services, and then lose all their money when the centralized service goes out of business, and then blame crypto or whatever for that. It's like, it's not actually crypto. You just gave money to some company, and the company gambled the money, and then they lost. Yeah. Jenkel's asking, could you explain better details about the AC for Vinium going to be for GLP and other LPs? The AC, yeah. So auto compounding, obviously, so we can. It works better to use auto compounding tokens. So essentially, what we're going to do initially is we're going to use Beefy tokens, because Beefy is a very trusted name. They have a lot of different tokens on their platform as well, which are yielding. They have GLP, they have Curve Tri Crypto. So we'll use that token as a token for collateral that you can use to borrow against, and essentially leverage up using that. And then in the future, especially when we do multi-chain expansion, we'll develop our own auto compounder where we can do that ourselves essentially, and then take essentially instead of Beefy getting the performance fee, then we can get it, which would be nice. But that's something that we'll work towards in the future, especially in our early stage. I think it's also a good sort of image factor for our platform to use, a very known and well trusted name in the auto compounding space, rather than use our own or work with Magic to make one initially, because we're not targeting the Toonfork people that already know and trust Magic and ourselves. We're trying to target a lot of people that have never heard of us, and therefore, especially with auto compounding things, they too get hacked often, and people go to trusted names, in other words, because of that. So that's basically the strategy that we have for it in the next few months. So we'll start off using Beefy tokens, and then develop our own auto compounder to auto compound those rewards in a nice package, and then we'll have it as a kind of seamless, where the user can come in and deposit probably any coin, where they can deposit the actual LP token, and then it zaps into the auto compounder, or they can deposit the auto compounding token itself, or they can deposit some stable coin or whatever other coin, and it will zap into the auto compounder. So that's kind of the idea. Oh, Saint. Saint is asking. Someone asked in the chat the other day, "What's your ultimate goal for the Grape token? How has it evolved over the year?" Um, yeah, it has definitely evolved over the year. I think initially we're starting out wanting to do more algorithmic based, but there are flaws in the algorithmic model. Obviously, peg is the main one, and the issue is that if you lose peg, then the value of the stablecoin itself, not just the dollar value, but the value in it being used is much less so. And so that's kind of died. You gain the value of um, high capital efficiency, but you lose the security essentially. And so we kind of want to move into a middle ground almost. And so Grape, the ultimate goal is really to be still a stable coin. But we likely have to change the model, and that's something we're drafting now. It's something that we can also use with Vinium nicely, where we tie the two together, where Grape can be a stablecoin but have more of a sturdy peg, in other words. But that does mean that the days of 10% printing Grape just to sell it all um, are kind of behind us almost, because they don't really make sense during a bear market at all. Yeah, well, there goes my Lambo. Yeah, true. I mean, as bear market man, you can buy a Hot Wheels car, Hot Wheels Lambo, but just stick it through next bull market. You'll make it. Sakomano is asking, when will production of wine end? What use will they have within the protocol? Production of wine, I think, ends. There's the exact dates on the contract somewhere. I have to go look, but it's probably mid-January, mid to late January is the time when the share awards pool stops yielding wine. And so what use will they have in the protocol? I mean, we've kind of discussed that obviously wine will have a revenue share in the protocol through the things that we develop going forward, and that includes Vinium and its ecosystem. So it's essentially a revenue share / governance token, which is actually already what it is. It's already that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a seniorage coin. You're earning Grape above peg. It's a revenue share. It's a seniorage share. It's also a governance token. So basically, the utility of it doesn't change. It's probably not going to yield like 1% a day, but like that's, as I said, there's degen APRs. They don't work in non-bull markets. Need Vintage is asking when Corkers. Did we answer that today? I think we did. I didn't give it the exact date though. But yeah, basically before Christmas they'll come out. We'll launch. We'll do probably initial launch. Probably initial like auction to test it out, and then we'll finish them off, like ramp it up and get them all out there. Right. Do you have any other questions? Doesn't seem like it. I mean, I think what I will mention is that we have about 55 about 55k in Vinium now. I haven't seeded it yet. I will seed it when we launch the LPs, because then there's a good reason to borrow from it, essentially. And as well, if you guys have any good blue chip, say blue chip LPs or yielding LPs that you think we should add to Vinium so that you can leverage up against that, let us know. You put in the suggestions and whatnot. So we have GLP on Beefy right now is doing 37% APY, which is pretty good. I mean, with that, you do have full exposure to ETH price, AVAX price, Bitcoin price, which isn't bad if you want that. But the cool thing as well is that we can also work with a way to neutralize that price exposure by essentially shorting those coins at the same time in the same ratio. It gets a little bit difficult, but it's definitely possible. And there's quite a few protocols that are trying to do this, especially on Arbitrum, with GLP specifically, because it's where most of the GLP is actually. But yeah, we can do things like that too. But initially, we'll just add the GLP, and then you'll have to do that manually if you want to neutralize that exposure. So GLP, try crypto. It says on Beefy right now is like 18% APY, and that's technically almost the same. Like it's the same exposure, almost like an index fund. We've got stable coins, and then BTC and ETH. And that's Curve. If you don't know Curve, should definitely use Curve if you're ever going to swap stable coins between each other. You should use an aggregator anyway, but they should be using Curve basically. Or if you're on AVAX, maybe Platypus or Trader Joe, the liquidity book now. And then there's some stablecoin LPs that we can also add in. Like the Vector Finance, USDC USDC, the same USDT or USDT, USDC. Things like that are really good for leverage because essentially there shouldn't be. There's a you can we can have 90% LTV against that, maybe even more, which is 10 times leverage, maybe even 20 times leverage safely, because the amount that they should deviate from the peg is pretty low. So that's kind of what we're looking at to kind of add in, because that's where most of the money is anyway. But it's also the way where you can borrow, you can leverage safely. Expect things like AVAX, SAVAX as well. That's that LP is probably a perfect example of something that we can leverage quite highly. Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing this month, December month, as we wrap out the year. We'll be focusing on finalizing some things for Grape, some outstanding things for Grape, and putting it in a very good position for the new year, and as well the kind of emissions ending, and then also building up Vinium on AVAX initially and its product suite, so that we can have a really good product ready to go to deploy on other chains as well. We are writing the deploy scripts for ZK Sync right now. So whenever that launches, we'll be pretty much ready to go. But there's a couple other helper contracts, as I mentioned, and a couple other features that we want to add to Vimium before it's kind of even ready to roll out between the chains in a really perfect to roll it out in a way that makes it stand out, in other words. Yeah, a couple of things for winemaker too, and that's kind of part of Grape essentially, where we'll put more focus on in the new year, with winemaker almost being moving to almost be its own thing as it's entering into the GameFi, and we'll be working closely as well with the Magic team and Owen. With Magic World, if you've seen that, it's pretty cool. It's something that we'll be working with them on, obviously with Grape, but possibly as well in the future, more in depth, as we kind of focus a little bit more on GameFi. And then also we have, Vinium tying in with Grape in a more serious kind of like yielding DeFi market, in other words. El Chavo, really cool to liberate nodes to really allocate those funds. I mean, I did mention we'll be doing the Grape Walrus and then the Grape Mim 2. The Grape will probably migrate to a press as well. Liberating them is a little bit of a different thing. And the thing is, if we liberate them, obviously you can only release the amount in the contract. So, people that haven't ROI'd will be favored first. If you have ROI'd, well then you probably won't get anything. Which, is fair to the other people that haven't ROI'd, but probably not what you want. If you have ROI'd, you'd rather stay in the pool. But yeah, that's something that's, as I was talking just before, about tying up Grape's sort of outstanding things. That's part of it. Nodes and some little things, and then building up winemaker as well, and getting Grape ready for emissions ending towards the end of January. So it's already been about an hour. But guys, have any other questions? If not, we'll probably end this here, and the recording will be up soon. Rainbow always does a good job on that. Pretty quick as well for the US. Probably too early for them now. Yeah, we might change the AMA time as well to something that's maybe it's hard to get everyone in the same time zone good. It's either going to be shit for me and then good for Europe and the US. It's going to be shit for someone, in other words. But we'll work that out, no worries. All right, well, I don't know if there's any other questions. Saint, you're writing something. I'll wait for that. Yeah, cheers, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your support, your continued support of Grape and the ecosystem. It's been a tough year for crypto, but you know, you can only go up from here, really. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Anyway, thanks, guys. We'll
Thanks,
be
everyone.
yeah,